Greetings, friends. Today we will talk about something that is very important and that science cannot explain adequately. In fact, it is a mystery that we rarely ask ourselves. But what is vital, since this substance is a fundamental part of this world and its life? I'm referring to the mystery of where it originates and what is the freshwater of this world. You may wonder, what's the mystery behind this? Well, it turns out that they have never explained to us where all the water comes from. We don't even know what that substance is, or why it exists in this world. We don't know how they dominate us with it. In the first place, they have given us a false belief that the water is running out. That is too few, and that it will soon be very difficult to attain. Which is so far from reality. In this video I will tell you very interesting secrets about this element. Secrets that will make you perceive reality in a different way. And not just how we have been indoctrinated to think. Let's start. Two theories are currently being proposed about the origins of water. The first is the theory that the water was formed in the center of the earth. Careful with this. By volcanic temperatures and vapor reactions millions of years ago, which somehow condensed into monstrous amounts to form liquid water. Which has many discrepancies, and which we will analyze. The other theory tells us about water transporting meteorites that arrived carrying all the water. These two theories, although they sound ridiculous, are supported and continue to be seriously discussed by scientists. However, it is not known how the water that exists been originated, and how it continues to be generated day after day throughout the world. In this video we will raise some serious questions that you have never asked yourself, and that for some will seem ridiculous. We must remind ourselves about the Illuminati deceptions that exist in terms of scientific discovery. The space masonry, the lodges, and Jesuit societies that control what is science and what is not. Let us remember that it is more convenient for them to keep us in ignorance, believing that the resources can only be provided by them, and by nobody else. They seek to teach us that nature and the countryside are backward, and that modernity and its tech-satanism is what we need. The illusions generated by what we call money, and which, as we know, are worthless pieces of paper. It is interesting how all banking concepts are based on maritime jargon, like currency or money flows. In reality, we are all governed under the law of the Maritime Admiralty. As you are 80% water. The tides are controlled by the moon. Money. This will only be important for the most awakened. Since I understand that each person has a different process of awakening. For those who want to learn more, I suggest to search for the Vatican's Maritime Admiralty law. The truth is that we are all considered an aquatic byproduct of the world. And each country registers as its own water. Later, we will explain more about this in alchemical terms, but for now, it's imperative that you understand the basic idea that they consider everyone to be water owned by the Vatican. All of us. Just as it sounds, and it's no joke. In this video, I want to show you how water is free, just like us. And how they lie to us and tell us that water is a prisoner. and is for our delight, and to be bought with his money, to make us think that they are the only ones who can provide it to us. Let me tell you something. We are water, and like water we are free. This is the reality of how we were created, and how this world where we live was created. Animals and plants. Water is one of the elements that makes this system work, supporting life. Before continuing to analyze both theories of the origin of water, we must remember the lies of NASA, Freemason astronauts, and the inability of the great still waters to bend. The fluid dynamics that force ocean water to be completely level. The horizon line that indicates that there can be no curvature. And the clouds that tell us that the Earth does not rotate. It does not move, and it does not spin. These are all Jesuit theories. We do not know what is below 12 kilometers. Even maybe there is no nucleus. Otherwise a compass would always point downwards, and not how it does, always pointing to Polaris, to something far at ground level. Or if there are two magnetic poles, the compass would point to different places depending on your location, which does not happen. If these things cause you conflict, stop and look for more videos on this subject first, so that you may understand this important model of reality. Continuing with this idea, and knowing the Illuminati lies, we can analyze and give a second look to all the ancient legends around this important issue, getting realize on how they lied to us, controlling us. They tell us that fresh water is scarce, and that it will soon run out. They force us to stay in the cities, to use their supplies, to pay for chlorinated and fluoridated water, to depend on them to obtain it, to be slaves for it, without allowing us to know the free alchemy to obtain it. We must understand that all this ecosystem is made for life. Everything in it is enough to provide us with a happy and healthy life. These people seek to control all resources, manage them, and sell them. Like Monsanto, which controls 40% of the world's productive lands, or Nestlé, or Coca-Cola, controlling the aquifers, overexploiting them. Now they even seek to control sustainable energies. We must understand and awaken to all these realities. Free sustainable technology exists. There are also good people with incredible ideas to make this world something wonderful. But there are also bad people who seek to control us all, and impose their standards and self-destructive beliefs on us. Unfortunately, those are the people who rule us and educate our children. That is why much of the information will never reach you through official education. They only care for you to be a good slave, and slaves are not educated, but only in what they need to know and no more. A global awakening is occurring as we speak, and it is imperative to realize that there are many mysteries associated with this vital element. In this world there are two main types of water, fresh and salt. The latter being the unique characteristic of large water bodies, known as oceans. and which supposedly make up 97% of the world's water, being only 3% of fresh water. But then, where does that fresh water originate? The answer seems simple at first: off rivers and lakes. But how does it come to be formed? Why does it exist? If Darwin's theory of evolution and adaptation were correct, all living beings would already be able to live in salt water, which is not the case. This world is perfectly made for us to live in it. And many of the things that Jesuit science makes up as the result of randomness and mere fortuitous chance are actually miracles created by nature for our subsistence. In other words, they want to separate us from a spirituality, get away from our connection with nature, corrupt ourselves to destroy it, instead of respecting and loving it. Even more, they trick us into thinking that their origin isn't important, being that it is a miracle and a mystery in all its splendor. So, where do the rivers originate? This question may seem silly, but the reality is that it is unknown. It is intuited that the largest rivers arise from the union of several streams that are born from springs. But what is a spring? Well, a spring is a very special rocky place from which water emanates for unproven reasons. Manantial comes from the word manna, which refers to a gift from the gods that is received effortlessly and unexpectedly. It is said that the water that flows from these sites comes from reservoirs that science calls aquifers. Gigantic holes of water that are inside the earth for reasons that cannot be verified, but only theorized. Nobody knows how they were formed. What is known from a recent study is that said water is very, very old. New private investigations led by Dr. Lydia Hallis of the University of Hawaii analyzed rocks ejected by geysers, in which a novel ion microwave dating technology and other precise geochemical techniques were applied, managing to calculate, according to them, that the water present in the glass crystals inside the rocks is even older than the rocks themselves. This was surprising, and was quickly minimized and forgotten. Since this puts official science in serious trouble, same as the volcanic theory of the origin of water, and to the meteorite theory, suggesting that water already existed in this world before the oldest rocks known to be formed. This corresponds to what the ancient scriptures say, that before everything, there was only water, and that God separated the waters above from the waters below. Could it be that true science describes exactly what is said in ancient legends? Which are the waters of below? In this video we will analyze some evidence that tells us that there are things that are hidden from us about this water sources, about the springs, or also called eyes of water. Here, we can see a small source of fresh water emanating directly from the earth. It is not salt water. It is important to say it. Seems to be very obvious, but this is very important. In this world exists much more salt water. Then, why is that the one that emanates from the earth is not salty? Think about it for a moment. Why is that one is salty and the others not? Science tells us that seawater is cleaned of salt due to the evaporation process of the oceans, which causes fresh water to rain. But then, how did so much fresh water get inside the ground? And why isn't salty? And, more important, what forces are pumping water since immemorial times? In other words, why fresh water has sprung up in such quantity and without ceasing for thousands and thousands of years. In a few moments we will answer all these questions and more. And I hope that at the end of the video you will realize that all these water sources have a hidden component that science will not tell us about, and which is better to leave as a mere tourist attraction than to investigate its oldest secrets. At this point, it is so easy to think that is very normal to find water in the so-called phreatic layers. But the real question is, how did that get there in the first place? Place where they tell us that it is supposedly between 1000 and 5000 degrees. But considering that water evaporates at 100 degrees, we can understand that there are certain things that don't match. Cause the temperature would go from one layer to another, causing steam to emanate from all the springs, instead of liquid water. That tell us that the inner layers are not so uniform like in a ball shape. About the non-existence of a nucleus and the understanding that this world is actually a dimensional etheric plane in perfect balance. Then we can realize that all fresh water is completely renewable. We just need to take care of the trees and the ecosystems. Live in harmony, without overexploitation for obtaining worthless papers. Knowing this great truth, they lose power over us. This entire natural world is made up of water in a greater or lesser extent. The elements and chemistry have alchemical foundations that are based on much older knowledge. Since all the elements are only names given by men to identify and make refer to them, none common person really knows the reason for these elements to exist, or why we have the power to transform them. But all is in order to promote life. The truth is that they are all gifts. Both plants and elements are beautiful gifts from an intelligent consciousness. Gifts that provide us freedom. The freedom to choose and discover new interactions. The freedom to experience a game where each of us are the main players. Nevertheless, these old people seek to enslave us and enslave all the resources of this world. They use their illusions to make us forget and despise nature. They buy it with worthless pieces of paper. I repeat, they buy nature and resources using only inked papers. Realize this tremendous truth of everything that is at stake. Our spirituality and the future of our children's minds. We must realize that we need to leave their system and this way of thinking behind. We must realize that money has no value, and that the true value is in nature, in love, in life and respect, in communion. We must stop being afraid of them and come together to educate towards the future and in an environment of sustainability. They don't want us to realize that the world's nature provides us with everything we need, without the illusion of being better than others just by having more pieces of paper. We, as water, are free and infinite. Proof of this is the Nile River. It is considered one of the largest rivers in the world, and through its riverbed, millions and millions of liters of water flows every second for more than 6,000 years. Then, where does so much fresh water come from? By conducting a quick investigation, we can realize that science does not really know the exact place where these rivers originate. The same happens with the Amazon River. Textbooks tell us that it begins somewhere in the mountains. However, there are no images or clear information in this regard. Besides that, very few people can give account of that because of the remoteness of that place. Thus, it is very difficult to carry cameras to that places, despite the supposedly satellite images. So, is there something they are hiding from us about it? It is interesting to note how in the springs the water is born perfectly pure and clean without fish or mud, and as the river progresses, plants and animals begin to appear. After that, water continues to flow, always by altitude, finding its level until it ends at the lowest parts of the world. The continental pools, also called oceans. But why is the water in the oceans already salty? This is something very important and that no school or university will tell you about, because it is forbidden knowledge. Geoalchemy. This possibly only the most awakened will understood. There is an alchemical substance called ormus, monatomic gold, rediscovered by scientist David Hudson, based on millenary alchemical recipes for the transmutation of gold from urine and seawater. Urine contains monatomic gold. Urine means gold in Sumerian. Actually, life in this world has simpler and purer purposes than what they tell us. Fresh water becomes saltier as more animals live and urinate in it, injecting minerals and enzymes in their ecosystem. Urine is not actually a waste. It is what this world needs to live and regenerate. A plasmatic byproduct of the blood. In this way, and to support what I say, you can inquire about seawater in the studies of René Quintone and Laureano Domingos. Also, the urinotherapy and the sacred foundations of this divine liquid composed 95% of water. But then, where does such quantity of water comes from? As we can see, all rivers are formed mainly in springs, flowing infinitely. But they will never tell so. This for you, to not inquire more about these things, and do not know the truth about this world. Although, it is true that part of the river flow is formed by glacier streams and rains, mostly all of the fresh water in this world emanates from the so-called downstream. It is important to note how everything coincides with what's described in ancient times. Those who know about the Illuminati lies must realize the magnitude of the deception that fools all of humanity, causing them not to see all the miraculous that exists for them. People fight each other for slips. They destroy and enslave nature for obtain more and more of that little rectangles of paper. We must understand that nothing good comes out of this self-destructive system. Next we will see more examples of different sources of water around the world. They can dry up due to capitalist overexploitation, since they do not give nature time to regenerate. Look how beautiful and unknown. Then, what is water? Alright. Alchemically, water is one of the main elements of this world, and it is denser than the air where we develop. Since we actually live in the air element, we do not live on Earth. That is for itself a tremendous secret, and it goes hand to hand with how density works in this world. The bottom is denser, and as higher you go, lighter it is. This applies in all natural kingdoms. All elements are made up of ether, but their mixes make them more or less dense. Grouping in states of matter and natural kingdoms. The kingdom of water is denser than the kingdom of air, where we live. The kingdom of earth are also denser, that's why they're below. This whole world is shaped like this, under those same dimensional laws. Since this is the material realm. Material, like math. That is why mathematics works in this world. Since it is based on geometry, who's like the programming language of nature. Alchemy deciphers that language, transferring it into chemical methods that make up the magic of this wonderful world that we think we know so much about, and which we know so little. This project seeks to make people aware of these important issues about which they tell us nothing. We seek to propose new ideas that are both very old and that are beginning to be revalued, due to so many deceptions that we have swallowed. It is time to generate a positive change in the world. This world is too wonderful to be told that it was all done by chance. Nothing is a casualty. There's a supreme intelligence behind creation, and this project is here to let all knows. Share. We speak the truth, and we will be heard. You just have to wake up from the great deception. The system does not work. Time to get out. Reactive Factory Project.